Indiana is your 2026 national champion. They beat Miami 27-21. You're listening to Step Brothers. I'm Wesley Clark here with Andrew Hayden. Our first podcast on the off season here in 2026. How are we feeling post 2025?
Goes too fast. It always does. Feels like got a long off season ahead of us. But we'll be here to pass the time. So
Yeah, it kind of, at least for both of us, it felt that we were both in off-season mode because, Ohio State was eliminated and you guys had your bowl game against Texas, both L's to the end of the season, but only one team really, wins at the end of the day. And when Michigan won 2 years ago, Ohio State won last year, and then the third Big Ten champion in a row in Indiana. Big props to them and what Kirk Cincinnati has done, especially with that roster. I know you can criticize it, but he's playing within the rules.
unreal.
And
Yeah.
it worked. So what a turnaround for that program, being one of the worst in the country. I remember, Indiana, Ohio State had the longest winning streak against Indiana. It was 30 in a row, and they ended that this year. But all credit to Indiana continue this Big Ten dominance in the postseason.
Yeah. That was absolutely insane. Just the turnaround they've put on display in the past 2 years. Really, I think it's a good thing for the sport. Just in general, right? Like, I bet a lot of other schools, a lot of other programs out there have seen what Indiana has done, and obviously, I don't think we're going to see anything like that in terms of how fast and of a turnaround that was, and going from literally the complete bottom of the barrel all the way to the top of the mountain. But I think this gives some programs some confidence that that's not unattainable for us, and I think that's overall a good thing, and one of the positives from the transfer portal and NIL era.
Absolutely. I mean, they climbed Mount Everest so quickly in 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's very impressive, especially the way they did it. They have an old roster. It's over 23 years old. Most schools are around 19 to 20. Obviously, with that freshman class bringing it down.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how sustainable it is for Indiana. Josh Hoover, the transfer quarterback coming in from TCU, he'll be leading the pack for Indiana. But of course, Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winner, and a national championship winning quarterback, and going to be the first overall pick to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Dante Moore going back to Oregon, that was his only competition. But just the way he was able to lead his team to a championship, obviously 4th and 5, kind of sealing the deal right there on that touchdown. Obviously, Miami had a chance at the end of the game, but what a play by Mendoza.
Yeah, and what a call too. I mean, the guts from Kurt Cincinnati to go for that in that situation. Off the timeout, looked like the field goal unit was coming out there, and then he changes his mind. Yeah, that was nuts. I'll say, just the game, really. I didn't feel like – I thought Miami was up to the task, and really I thought they played physical. I didn't think that Indiana dominated them in any sense, but ultimately what it came down to was I think Indiana tackled better, right? Like, Miami missed a ton of open field tackles, and Indiana was, multiple guys just to the ball immediately on the catch, huge, their guys inside were doing a great job against those inside runs. And then special teams, right? Like, Miami misses a field goal, obviously the punt block touchdown, like the team that we talk about, Indiana being just the most solid and fundamentally sound and well coached, like, of course they win a national title on the back of doing the little things right. And yeah, it was impressive. An impressive year.
Yeah, I know Urban Meyer talks about all the time, if you score on special teams, you're going to win the game. And that was the exact thing that happened for Indiana. And I remember texting you, why did Malachi Tony catch that ball inside the 5? There's,
right.
When you're learning, I did punt returning in high school, and we were taught to let the ball go when there's someone behind you. There was not a defender behind him. Sorry, if there's no defender behind you, you're supposed to let the ball go. That wasn't the case. He caught the ball at the 4, 5, and 3 and out, and then the block punt, which
I didn't realize that was the same drive.
Yep, essentially won the game for Indiana. I mean, you go back to last year when Ohio State beat Indiana, blocked punt, Caleb Downs returns a touchdown. There's no chance to come back from that. When
Right.
special teams is the one scoring, defense is a killer. It's in itself, but special teams, I mean, that's pretty wild to be able to
Yeah.
score on special teams, and they end up losing by 6. They scored 7 off
Yeah.
that.
That's the game right there.
It is. So, Mendoza, I've said this over and over again, maybe on here, but also, at work, he is so good in the red zone. Great pylon throws, back shoulder throws, and he showed that can again, like so many times, especially on third down. I think also on another fourth down,
Yeah.
as well. He's just so good at it.
Yeah.
And I think going to the Raiders is actually not the worst thing for him because of Tom Brady being a minority owner.
Yeah. It certainly looks better now than it would have, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's because of that.
I want to get your take on Carson Beck. He 232, completed 19 passes. That one interception he had was obviously lost the game to Pons, but really the post game kind of sticks out, and it's people are criticizing him for not going to shake Mendoza's hand, just headed to the locker room. As someone who plays, still playing sports now in college, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as much of a big deal as people are making it out to be. I think, he just lost in the national championship by his own interception. Like, obviously that's an emotional moment. So for him to, I don't know what was going on. I'm sure it wasn't. Carson Beck doesn't have a history of being like a bad guy or, anything like that. So I think just in that moment, like that's just, I can't really blame him. I don't feel some type of way about it really.
Yeah, I agree in a way. Obviously, I believe Mark Fletcher, he started throwing punches at the end of the game, and then
I saw that. That's obviously can't be doing that.
That's a little, that is, to me, that's way worse. There was something that could have been said about his father passed away a couple years ago, and it came out saying that maybe an Indiana player said something about that. I don't know why you would do that after winning the national championship.
I don't know.
If that's the case, then by all means, go off. But I guess I do respect him going. I do respect him going back to Mendoza and shaking his hand. For Carson Beck, obviously he's the quarterback, and yes, he did throw that interception. I had been petty at times, for sure. So I can't 100% say I wouldn't do that. I kind of just want to go on my own and move on with life.
Yeah, maybe he's just going to find a Bella Danger. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very possible after
just in a rush.
Yeah, he followed one girl there, and maybe he leads with another.
Leaves with another. Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah. I mean, that's obviously not much to say. Obviously, congrats to Indiana. I don't have anything else to say about it. 16-0, first time to do it since I believe 80s Yale, something like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's a lot. The parity. This is the last thing I'll say. The parity in college football. There's a lot of parity in college football. They are comparing Indiana, obviously, to other national champions. I don't think that they're up there with other champions.
No, I agree, but that's not even like a shot really in Indiana. Like it's a different game. You can't stockpile talent. Like it's not their fault. Like the 2019 LSU's, like the 2020 Alabama, like that's not happening again, which is a good thing. But like, so that's why I don't think you can really compare.
Yeah, I mean, if I think 2014 Ohio State doesn't get looked at much because Cardale Jones was the quarterback. He's a broadcaster now.
Yeah.
But you have Zeke and Nick Bosa and I believe Marshawn Lattimore was on the team. Maybe he was a freshman, but Michael Thomas on the team. I think they win. 2020 Alabama for sure. 2019, there's 3 teams in 2019 that come to mind that I think would destroy Indiana, and obviously Ohio State team.
Clemson.
Yes, Chase Young, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams was on that team as well. Chris Olave, I believe, was. Yeah, I believe he was on that team. Yeah. I think he left in 2022, and then get Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Not Trey Sherman. J.K. Dobbins. So it's just loaded. and that's just Ohio State, and they were third that year. So Clemson and LSU, if you're losing to the third place team, then I can't imagine what happens when you go up against
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence and ETN, and they lost the national championship.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a shot against IU, but I have different thoughts on where they should be placed all time.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it's undoubtedly impressive. I mean, if you want to talk about like one of the greatest turnarounds in sports, period, I'm 100% with you there. But compared to other college national champions, it's a different game. Like you're not going to see teams that like those are super teams that we're talking about from the early to late teens. Like that's gone, and it's a good thing that that era is gone because now more teams can be involved. But yeah, the comparison, it's just hard to compare those two. But I will say, I texted you about this earlier, and then we can move on. I think with the amount of teams now coming into the fold, right? Like Indiana, obviously, Miami is now back in the national picture. Like Ole Miss is a team I think of especially. Like I think a lot of teams are getting very confident that it's now that they're on the scene, right? Ole Miss especially like just made a semifinal. Now like that is something you just repeat year in year out, and I don't think people realize like just how hard it is to sustain success. Like nobody outside of really Alabama or Ohio State for the last 2 decades has been able to be a consistent national title contender,
Absolutely. I mean, those two programs, have been in the CFP pretty much every year. Ohio State's the only program that would have made the 12-team playoff every single year, and Alabama would have missed it once, which was last year. And it gives more. There's two ways to look at this. You can either look at it optimistically, which I'm going to do. A school like Virginia Tech now has an opportunity to get there, and their fans look. There's so many fan bases now, including Ole Miss, that now look towards the football season. For Ohio State, Michigan, it is national title every single year. We both just had one, and we won another one. For a school like Ole Miss, their fans are going back and watching highlights of the games that they just won in that playoff because it's never happened for them before.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it is very difficult, but this is the new game of college football, and it's for the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's absolutely for the best, but I think some programs are in for a rude awakening. When you talk about how many things really have to go right for you, like the amount of things that had to go right for Indiana to make this run, like the coaches that need to be put in place, the guys that need to be in the room. I know they're not like blue chip recruits, but like undoubtedly the ability of some of the players on the team, right? Like a guy like Charlie Becker to step up late in the season and turn into what he did. Like it takes like magic to put everything together. And so people, I think people underestimate. Yes, like it's possible to reload your team in one off season with the portal, but I think people underestimate how much, certain losses and certain coaching changes really have an impact. And I think that's going to be something that maybe becomes more apparent, especially when you look at these like way too early top 25s, right? Where it's all the teams that were just in the playoff or like throughout the top 10. Like it's just probably not going to work out like that,
And it didn't this year. Clemson, Texas, and Penn State were 1, 2, 3. Not in the order. I believe Texas 1, Penn State 2, Clemson 3, and then Ohio State was 4. Those 3 didn't even make the playoff. I believe Indiana was like 15 or 22, something
18, maybe 20. I think they're 20.
So, and they won the national championship. Miami was ranked, then they were unranked, and they got back up to number 2 behind Ohio State. So it is very random. Now there's so much to talk about with the coaches poll and the AP poll. I think that needs to be abolished. I no longer I look at it because it's funny. I'm one of the coaches left out Ohio State in the top 25.
Yeah, you just forgot. Sorry.
That's why I wondered, did he actually forget?
Oh, there's no way he just didn't think they were good. Like, you think he thought like Tulane was better than them? No.
I mean, but that's the thing that should be abolished. You got to get rid of it.
It's just kind of a useless. Like it serves no purpose really.
Because who looks at it? I mean, you go to the ESPN app and you have to scroll to it. because the CFP and the net, the AP poll
Yeah.
are there first. But I mean, off track. I don't know
Yeah.
how we got there, but
Sorry.
it was. I guess you were talking. We were talking about parity. Yeah, the transfer portal is going to allow schools like Indiana to be good, and it's also going to allow schools like Kentucky to one day make the playoff, and that's they look back, and that was Old Miss this year.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, you don't know, right? Like, you even don't even know about Indiana, right? Like, it's not nothing is set in stone. I know they just lost their strength and conditioning coach to Tennessee, so we'll see kind of how
There's always
these
losses when you win in terms of coaching
yeah.
and players. I mean, the one thing that I've gotten used to with watching so many years of Ohio State football, the players are only there for so long, and now they're only there for 1 year. I
Even
mean,
less.
I
Yeah.
had Dunkins for 1 year. I had Will Howard for 1 year, Downs for 2, and I used to I had JT Barrett for 4 years. That so it's a very different game than in the NFL.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah. All right. Well, we just talked about some way too early projections. So now we're going to get into both Michigan and Ohio State's 2026 schedule. We're going to maybe make some early predictions, talk about some early projections with the way things have been going in the offseason so far. Obviously, there's still room for, a couple more portal additions possibly for both teams, but the rosters are mainly figured out at this point. I know Ohio State also has an offensive coordinator hire to make. So we'll see there. But I want to start with Michigan. And let's just go through game by game. Let's talk about each one. Western Michigan. This was originally supposed to be played in Germany. That got canceled. Moved to Ann Arbor, which is a good thing. As many games you can have on your home field is a good thing for students and everybody. So I'm going to mark that down as a W unless you have any qualms there.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. And then starting off early with Oklahoma again. Week 2. This was a really frustrating one last year. Just didn't feel like the team came in prepared at all for what that game was going to be. We had a true freshman quarterback going on the road in week 2. He looked hurried. He looked sped up. The offense looked terrible. This year, though, I feel pretty good about this one. I know Oklahoma has lost some key pieces on defense, especially R. Mason Thomas, Kendall Daniels. But they do return John Mateer. They do return Jordan Satania. I think that's his first name. So they've still got some weapons there. But this game now going to be played in Ann Arbor. My early feeling on this, and this is hard to do with a new coaching staff too, right? Because I think ultimately, no matter what on our roster has changed, like that's the most important thing, and that's absolutely just a gigantic upgrade over the staff we just had. And so, you don't entirely know what to expect in terms of how the team is going to be ready for these games. But I'm kind of feeling a W here against Oklahoma.
Yeah, this game will be in Ann Arbor. That's going to be a easy plus. Bryce Underwood and more experience. I mean, like you said, I mean, it came up for him, him being a true freshman. And there's a difference between a true freshman in week 12 and in week 2. Like you're talking about a guy who was in high school, 6 months ago when it came to that game. So this is a must win for Michigan in this situation. And yeah, I'll give them the win.
It is, yeah. This does feel like a must-win, especially with these week 2 games the past couple of years, getting blown out by Texas in the Big House, and then losing at Oklahoma last year. This feels like one you have to get, especially with what's ahead of you in this schedule. So I feel pretty confident about that one. I think they'll just be way more prepared for it, and I am eyeing possibly going to that game. So we'll see.
There you go.
UTEP marked down as a W. You can move on there. All right, and this is not in order yet. I believe the full Big Ten schedules come out on Tuesday with each with when these games are actually going to be played. But for now, we just have them out of order. So
oh, really? I thought Rutgers was the last week. I thought they
actually switched it. Yeah,
gotcha. New rivalry in the Big Ten.
Yeah, at Rutgers. Yeah, the game. Anyway, yeah. Continuing on. Indiana. This one is at home, which I think bodes well for Michigan. It's kind of hard to say what Indiana is going to be, right? Obviously they're going to have elite coaching. They are going to have a new quarterback. They're going to have a star
New wide
receiver,
receivers. Yeah.
Nick Marsh. Sorry, Andrew Marsh will be our receiver. And Nick Marsh, they're going to be replacing a lot of experience, a lot of leadership. They still have defensive coordinator Bryant Haynes, obviously. Shanahan, I believe, is the offensive coordinator. I think he plans to stick around. So I anticipate Indiana taking a step back. In whatever capacity that means, I just don't think they're going undefeated again, right? Because that's hard to sustain. But just with the amount of experience that you lose, like the amount of, like you talked about, like their roster was all starters basically were over the age of 23. Like that's something, and we have just, we both kind of had that these past 2 years, right? Michigan's 2023 team was the same way. Ohio State's was similar last year, and we know how hard that is to replace. I actually feel pretty good about this one. I think that playing this game at home, Michigan played Indiana pretty tight a couple years ago in Bloomington. It's like 20-15 final score. I feel like this is one that Michigan can get, and maybe one that puts you back into kind of that conversation as being at the top of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I wonder how good Indiana is on the road when they play tough opponents. Ohio State kept them to 2 touchdowns, first drive and last drive, and then almost lost to Penn State, and then almost lost to Iowa this year, the 1 by 5. That was 2015 game.
I forgot about that game. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting one.
So
yeah, they beat Oregon on the road. Obviously, that was a marquee win.
Yes, yeah, you're right. So, yeah, I mean, it's Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt are gone. Mendoza is that. That's all a step back. You're talking about replacing all those guys. I mean, those guys, a ton of those guys came over from JMU and were developed under Cignetti, and he's gonna have a whole new team. It's a refresh for him or Cignetti and the tire. I mean, to be honest with you, if you told me right now, if you came from the future and told me Indiana didn't make the playoff, I'd be like, yeah, okay. I would 100% believe you if they lost 3 games next year.
I wouldn't be surprised at like a 9-3 season, which is not bad coming off a national title.
Yeah, so I'm fine. Yeah, if again at home, it's gonna help, and against a team that has 0 team chemistry at this point coming in next year.
Yeah, and we'll see. And like I said, we don't know when that game is even going to be played. Like that, this could be a completely different conversation when we actually get there. This could be the week before the Ohio State game, and one team could be unranked. You never know.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty confident about that one. I don't really know why. I just feel like the roster for Indiana is going to have a lot of turnover, and that's going to bode well for Michigan. All right, and then these next kind of 4, I could almost group together. I'm going to jump around a little bit because I think UCLA at home is a win. I believe in Bob Chesney and what he's doing at UCLA. They actually had a pretty good portal haul, including Samaj Morgan from Michigan, who can't catch anything, but love the guy and what he gave to Michigan. So good luck to him there. So return trip to the big house should be interesting. But I'm going to go win there over UCLA. I don't think they'll be ready to compete just yet. And then Michigan State, I think, is also kind of the same way. Now, I'm not as sure about Pat Fitzgerald as I am. Maybe not sure is the right word, but confident in Pat Fitzgerald as I am in Bob Chesney. But either way, I just don't think Michigan State has the guys there right now. Coming off of the couple of years that they've had in a row, they've made a lot of additions in the portal. I don't think many of them are like really high caliber. And this one's played in Ann Arbor. I just feel there's no way I could pick against Michigan in this spot. What do you think there?
Against Penn
Michigan State.
I mean, they're irrelevant next year. I mean, I would honestly, when I look at Michigan State and UCLA, both 2 new coaches, I am honestly picking UCLA if they played Michigan State, I would guess UCLA would win. I'm way more confident in Nico and having Bob Chesney develop him, new offensive coordinator, a new slate in UCLA for a good purpose, in a good way. Michigan State has been on a decline for years now, and obviously what happened to their ex-coach. They're a mess, in East Lansing, and there's a lot that needs to be fixed, and it's not right now for Michigan
Yeah.
State.
Yeah. I don't think exactly like you put it. I don't think this is a quick rebuild at all based on just where the program currently is. Even if Pat Fitzgerald ends up being a great fit for them, I just don't see it be put together in,
No.
I don't see an Indiana type turnaround. Let me put it that way. All right, and then let's move on to these next. These are the two out of the next group of four that I was talking about that probably worry me more than some of the other ones on the schedule. Not as much as like the big games, right? The Oklahoma, Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, but Iowa and Penn State could be sneaky. Now, I feel maybe Penn State. They obviously just brought pretty much the entire Iowa State Cyclones roster over to Happy Valley. New coach in Matt Campbell. It's kind of hard to project. They got Rucko Becht, who's a pretty decent quarterback. It's kind of hard to project what they're going to be next year. But I feel pretty good about this one at home. Just the way that things stand. Obviously, I could be proven wrong here, but I feel pretty good about that one as of right now, right? Like, there's a lot to change, and we don't know a whole lot about what Penn State's going to be under Matt Campbell. But as of right now, I'll go win there. Then Iowa. And I think other than the big games, a game that Michigan could drop probably ends up being either Iowa or Penn State. That's kind of my pulse on it. I don't know a whole lot about Iowa's roster at all, right? They're not a heavy portal team. I don't know who they have graduating. Is Gronowski still? Is he graduate? Do you have 1 year left?
Obviously, they lost, their best player, Coy. I'm forgetting it. Coy something. I'm forgetting it.
Coy Parrish. That's Minnesota.
Coy Parrish. That's right, man. Yeah, he went to Oregon. But
yeah.
That's a good question. Now, the thing is about Iowa, because I feel the same way. If you told me there was a team out on the outskirts of like the blue bloods within the Big Ten, and that's Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon. Who else am I missing here? Probably those three come to mind the most. Like, always Iowa. If you told me that someone was winning the national championship that wasn't those three, I would assume it's Iowa.
Really?
Yes, with NIL. I mean, their coach has the most wins out of all time Big Ten. He surpassed Woody Hayes this year, and with the NIL and a proven coach, he always has for the most part, keeps his guys for at least 3 to 4 years. I would not assume Indiana would do it. So to me, Iowa's been around, ranked except for back-to-back years all the time. So when I look at the Ohio State schedule, I am worried about this one more than I would be about Penn State for you.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to project objectively here. I'm going to project a loss. I feel like looking at it from right now, which, like I said, new staff, a lot of things have to go right. Bryce Underwood has to make huge strides. I think I could see them splitting these games between Iowa and Penn State at home. So I'll take Iowa here. Like I said, I don't know when these games are going to be, but I'll take Iowa. It just kind of maybe a hunch thing. So
yeah, I mean, you don't want to be too biased, but
I do, but I'm not going to for the sake of this. But
if Iowa is bringing back the same roster, you go look at their games, and let me see if I can pull it up. It might be gone off the ESPN app. The losses they have are, I believe, all one-score games.
Yeah,
and that includes Oregon, Iowa. I mean, Indiana, and there's two others in there that were tough matchups, and I'll have to go double check. But you're talking about you're 4 plays away from being in the playoff, and you saw what the Big Ten could do with the defenses that they create against out of conference. I mean, they can't score against Big Ten teams, especially with the SEC, the projection they had this year being so good. What they could have done in the playoff? Maybe they would have been the Ole Miss this year. So if I was bringing the same roster, then I think both of us should be concerned.
Yeah, no, and that's why I'll mark it down as a loss there. Obviously, I feel like Oklahoma or Indiana is more likely to beat us at home. But just on my projection, I feel like Iowa's a team that we could overlook, that could make it a dogfight and give us some problems. So that's where I'll put a loss. I'm going to put Minnesota and Rutgers together here. I just don't think they have the athletes to compete, really. I mean, Drake Lindsey at Minnesota is, I think, a really good quarterback. They obviously lost Coy Parrish, like you just said, to Oregon, but I'll put both those down as wins for Michigan, and then we'll kind of move into Ohio State and Oregon, which this is like, if you can split these games, I feel pretty confident that you're going to be able to be a playoff team. Even with this schedule, with this strength of schedule, I could even see if Michigan does go 9-3, depending on where those losses are, I could see them being the first 3-loss team to be in the field, or even Ohio State with their schedule that we'll talk about, just because the how hard the schedule is. But Ohio State and Oregon right now, I would on the road. I think there's a lot of questions at Ohio State just with all the talent that you lose, first round talent, and what kind of guys are there. But Oregon brings back a lot, especially on the D line. They bring back Dante Moore. They have DeCorian Moore still. Evan Stewart's going to be back from injury. I think that makes me lean Oregon there in that game in Eugene. And then Ohio State, just until I see some improvement from Michigan, I wouldn't feel confident going into that one. So, thankfully that's at the end of the season. So you can grow a lot and before that game happens. But right now I would mark those two down as losses if I were to look at it objectively.
Yeah, I mean, going over with Oregon, and obviously we'll touch on Ohio State the entire offseason, what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
With Dante Moore coming back, I mean, that I watched that live and was shocked. I mean, you're talking about a guy giving up $50 million to try to go win a national championship. I wouldn't do that. As much as I would love to play for Ohio State and be a quarterback, it doesn't matter. Like, you're talking about $50 million in a football. The average career is a little bit over 3 years because of injuries, for the most part. So it's shocking that he came back. I don't know what they're paying him. Yeah. We'll see if that comes out. But what Oregon has got from the transfer portal, obviously the recruiting class was great the last 2 years. Yeah, if a Big Ten team, if Oregon wins the national championship, because they've done everything right.
Yeah, they're certainly in the best position they will have been in recent years to go win one. So we'll see if that curse gets lifted. But yeah, so overall here, this puts Michigan at 9-3 with my projection. If I'm not putting my bias aside, I really think Michigan could go 10-2 against the schedule, maybe even 11-1. But just a lot of things have to go right. Like, that youth is on. There's a ton of young talent on Michigan's roster. Obviously, you're putting in a great coaching staff to help develop those guys, but that has to be realized, right? Like, and you don't know who's going to show up at what position, right? Like, obviously, linebacker and defensive tackle are areas where Michigan still probably feels a little bit thin in terms of depth and in terms of experience. But I feel like it's good enough to win 9 games against the schedule. But I could see them losing every one of those games in Oklahoma, Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon. It's just, there's a lot we don't know about the team. So,
right, especially with everything that happened this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And transfers are question marks, no matter who they are going into a new program.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to be like a Caleb Downs to be like, yeah, you're getting better. So hopefully for your case that Michigan is getting someone of that caliber, or even just improving the team in general.
Yeah. So we'll go 9-3, but my expectation is to make the playoffs, and maybe it depends on what happens with other teams around the country. Maybe 9-3 gets you in, like it almost did for Texas this year, but that's kind of where I stand on it. But I'm expecting to make the playoffs. That's my expectation going in. It's been 2 years at this point that we haven't been in it. I think anything less than that would be a disappointment for this team. But moving on, let's go to Ohio State's schedule. Let's pull it up here, and I'll let you lead the way. There we go.
Yeah, so we see here, obviously, looking when I first look at it, it's that Texas game. The Texas at home finally. Obviously, Ball State. You get that win to start the season. That is a plus. Compared to yeah, last year when you played Texas. Luckily at home, but right away with Julian Sain in his first career start as a collegiate quarterback. I'm glad that game for obviously it helps Texas, but for Ohio State's sake, obviously with Qual Rashaw and James Smith and just those recruits coming in, Earl Little, from FSU, in the secondary, just getting those guys settled in against Ball State. When I look at Texas, this is a year that Arch Manning has to prove himself, and that's what's scary. Obviously, last year's it's first year. He's sitting behind Quinn Ewers, a very good quarterback, and probably learned a ton from him. And he's had some solid games with the Dolphins actually, which has
Yeah.
probably surprised people. But for Arch Manning, this is an important year for him. And with that game being in Austin and Cam Coleman at wide receiver, there's more questions, I believe, with Ohio State than there are with Texas.
Yeah.
So, Texas to me would probably end this losing streak against Ohio State. I don't know when the last they played in 07, they beat them. Ohio State beat Texas, but obviously in the Cotton Bowl and then last year.
Yeah.
So this would be the third straight year losing to them. I mean that'd be crazy to see. I mean it obviously could happen, but I'm gonna try to be unbiased and go with Texas here.
Yeah. No, Texas is absolutely loaded. Plain and simple. Arch Manning was playing his best football at the end of the season. He ran all over Michigan in the Cheez-It Bowl. Obviously, Cam Coleman coming in. They got the number one linebacker in the portal from Pitt, Rasheem Biles, who I thought was going to come to Michigan. That's unfortunate, but he's at Texas. Hollywood Smothers also at running back. They flipped him from Alabama in the transfer portal. He was absolutely balling this year at NC State. There's a loaded roster. I feel kind of similar about Texas as we just talked about with Oregon, where it's like you have every piece you could have. Like this is where you have to go make a splash.
And they haven't won since when they beat USC.
Right, Vince Young. Yeah.
So it's been a while for Texas. Sam Ellinger, they beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl and said we're back. Well, they haven't been back in a while. And an Oregon Texas game in the national championship wouldn't be surprising in 2026. So I'll go with Texas on this one, just because also the questions on the secondary. You're talking about Terry Moore, who's obviously a great safety for Duke, but he was hurt the entire year in 2025. So, he's having to replace Igmanosin and Downs. Those are key pieces that prevented touchdowns against top wide receivers. So I'll go 1-1 to start the season. Kent State win. I'll go with an Indiana win. I don't think I just do not believe this will be on October 21st. They came out with this schedule already for this game. I don't believe Indiana will reload like they did this year. They're going to be younger. Ohio State's going to be also older than they were last year. Julian Sain will be more experienced. I honestly believe that Ohio State wins the Big Ten championship if Fielding doesn't pee his pants. So, Indiana, that'll be a win to me.
Okay.
In Bloomington, Illinois is a win. That they're going to take a step back. They had a good year, but they'll take a step back, losing their quarterback.
Yeah.
Maryland Northwestern, not much to say there. You're going up against the one and only Chip Kelly against Northwestern, but they should get the dub against their old offensive coordinator. Oregon, like you've said, and you talked about for a good chunk for a good reason, is because of who they're retaining and who they're bringing in. And Dan Lanning, I mean, he's only 40 years old, or he's turning 40 this offseason, which is shocking. I mean, that you're talking about that was probably around the age where Nick Saban started to make his mark in college football. I and then I know he went to the Dolphins for a little bit, but Dan Lanning is a young
Yeah.
guy, and he's gonna learn so
Hmm.
much. Wouldn't be surprised if he eventually makes himself to the NFL like, Urban and Nick Saban did. Obviously, those both didn't succeed, but
Yeah.
this is gonna be a really good Oregon team, and, Ohio State beat Oregon last time they played. This is in Columbus, which helps, but I'll kick it to you, on your thoughts, outside
You want my
perspective.
thoughts? Yeah, I don't know. This one, traveling multiple time zones, we've seen has been a problem for Big Ten teams. I don't think Oregon is exempt from that, but they just have so many less questions than Ohio State does. Like it's just when you have 4 or 5 guys in the first round, like there's going to be questions, and there's no doubt that they have talent loaded up in every single position group at Ohio State, but like right now, I just think it's unproven. I think you're relying on a lot of young guys and transfers in the secondary, and you just lost a lot of veteran guys in the front seven. So I would probably lean Oregon here, but this is, I think excitement level for this one could be very similar to what we saw in 2024 in that close game in Eugene between these two teams.
Yeah, and Julian Sand gonna be his second full year. Jeremiah Smith will be in his last year. I'm taking Ohio State in this one. Bo Jackson will be a sophomore. Qual
Mm-hmm.
Rashaw and James Smith, those guys had a phenomenal year at Alabama. They're not lesser talent than what Oregon has,
No.
and Ohio State's at home, which helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take Ohio State here. Uh, so 1 loss still against Texas. And this Iowa, this could be a trap game if these are back. If these, obviously, this is not Indiana, October 17th. Oh, so same weekend, 17th, not the 21st. I misspoke.
Yeah. That's
But
fine.
if Iowa, this obviously is a tough schedule, and if Iowa is after either Indiana, Oregon, USC, then this could be a trap game. It's been a while since Iowa has beaten Ohio State. I believe it did in 2018 or 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, Iowa City.
Yeah.
I still think it's going to be a win because you're talking about. There's definitely guys on Iowa that are leaving. I mean, they were still a pretty old roster,
Yeah.
and that's why they were so close to winning so many games this year. They lost to Iowa State by 3. They lost to USC by, I believe, like 4 or 5. And obviously, we talked about the Oregon game and the Indiana game. They're in reloading mode a little bit more than like an Ohio State or Michigan can just
Mm-hmm.
retain talent and just get top talent out of the portal off the
Yeah.
bat.
Right.
And I think that's going to be an issue, and that's why Iowa can't get over the hump. And I would love to see Iowa make the playoff at some point. Their coach 100% deserves it. He has stuck it out there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and
Yeah.
one of the best coaches that the Big Ten's ever seen. But I'll go with Ohio State here. Nebraska, I think is. I mean, they lost their quarterback, and they haven't been much since the '90s. One of the most dominant teams since then in that era, and then has just kind of lost it. Great fan base, and obviously this is in Lincoln, and this is obviously seeing these games and where they are placed in the schedule is going to be huge. I mean, I
Yeah.
could change my mind with that Oregon game if it's back to back with Iowa or it's USC.
Right.
So we'll go later in the year. We'll talk about. We'll come back to this and
Yeah.
kind of go to it, but I mean, you don't expect Ohio State to lose in Nebraska. Same thing with
I would not
USC.
expect no.
Same thing with USC, obviously, depending on the schedule. Uh, I want. What is your opinion on USC? Because 3 losses in the regular season, we're 1 win away from getting themselves in the playoffs. You see their talent kind of being the same. Obviously, their Jaden Mayava is coming back to USC. He's going to be kind of more proven quarterback like Arch Manning, Julian Sand. What do you see there?
Yeah, no, I think their offense is going to hum as the Lincoln Riley offense usually does. I believe Mekhi Lemon is gone. I believe. Um, what's the name of the other receiver? He was hurt for a little bit this year. Another good receiver
Uh,
at USC.
yeah, yeah,
Can't
but
remember exactly. But yeah, so I would imagine the receiver room takes a small hit. They have some really solid running backs coming back. I believe it's Woody Marks.
Woody
Uh,
Marks played for the Texans.
okay. You know what? I think I was watching like an old highlight video earlier, so that's why I was just thinking of Woody Marks. But King Miller, I know, is coming back. Joyner, that's who it is. Joyner at USC. So they've got a lot of offensive weapons. I think. I'm not sure what their offensive line looks like or anything like that. But on defense, I worry about USC using D'Anton Lynn, who is a great defensive coordinator. I think he's going to Penn State, right? Is that where he's going?
Yes.
Yeah, Penn State. So I think he is a really good defensive coordinator. I think it's just for whatever reason doing it for Lincoln Riley. It's just like a really tall task. But I do think they made improvements every single year under D'Anton Lynn. Now they have the former TCU head coach. I forget what his name is, but I think it just was announced today that he'd be the new defensive coordinator.
Yep. It was either today or yesterday.
Yeah,
It was this week. I saw
yeah.
that.
So I think there's just a lot of questions on defense again, like there is with any Lincoln
And
Riley
that is
team up to this.
which is just crazy. I mean, so many years they have great offense. We saw it this year,
Yeah,
especially in that Michigan game. But for some reason, their defense is just Swiss cheese every year.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it had. I think it was better this year than it had been. Obviously,
Sure.
like 2023 and prior, like awful. Like the Caleb Williams years, just awful. But I can't give USC a win here yet. I think based on what Michigan, I don't know if Michigan was just that poorly coached or if going all the way to LA to play in the Coliseum is that tall of a task, but they got destroyed there this year. I'll give Ohio State the edge here, but I would not be surprised, especially like you said, depending on where this game fits in terms of relation to other games. Is it a look ahead game? Is it coming off a big
Yeah.
emotional win? I think this could be a dangerous one, but I would give Ohio State the win here.
Yeah. I mean, it should. If you're just talking about talent, then that should be a win for Ohio State. And playing Michigan at home, if you're just talking about the same thing there, Ohio State probably a little bit more on the older side than Michigan now because Jeremiah Smith is in his last year, Julian Sain in his second year. I know Bryce Young is a sophomore, but Julian Sain
Bryce Young.
is it Bryce? Yeah, Bryce Underwood. Julian Sain is a junior when it comes to academics, so he was able to
Right.
sit behind Will Howard.
Yeah.
I'll go with Ohio State, but the thing is, like we've said so many times, I can totally see like a loss somewhere in here. It would make total sense. This is a really tough schedule that Ohio State has. So the goal here for Ryan Day, just you win 10 games and you're in, and don't even worry about it. Once you get in that college football playoff, it's a new season.
Anything goes. Yeah.
Just get
Saw
that
what
10.
Miami just did.
Right. No, exactly. Who cares about it's been so many years since Ohio State's lost 3 games. This is a completely different college football era. Get that 10 win and then let's move on. But that's going to be a tough to get. I mean, this is a hard schedule, if not the hardest schedule, depending on how good Iowa, Indiana, and Michigan are, and
Yeah.
also USC. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. But once we get closer, and obviously once we see how these teams are, both have what should be easy wins to start the season. We'll see how they match up in week 2. Both tough games to
Yeah.
in week 2 for both of us against SC teams. So hopefully
Yeah.
we can.
That's gonna be a big day of games to watch.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
It honestly didn't even click in my head until right now that game's not in week 1 again. I didn't realize that was a week 2 game. So,
Against Texas.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that there was talks about Steve Sarkisian talked about he was questioned whether he was going to cancel this game, and he said he was going to honor it because of how their season turned out. I think that they were better than Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's just impossible because if they went up against Miami early in the season, they They could have won maybe, or later. Who knows? It's just hard with the different conferences. Obviously, a 20. I believe the 24 or 16, the expansion of the playoffs just got denied, so it would be at least one more season
Hmm.
after 2026 to 12 teams. So we'll see how that goes. But the more the merrier in the college football playoff. I'm going to say no.
No, I think it could be restructured, but I don't think it should. I don't think you need more teams.
I mean,
I don't
24
think
teams is
that's insane. No, I mean then you're just. I mean, what's the point? Like you want to go 7-5 and make the playoffs? Like
which we almost saw with Duke.
yeah, you would have seen it with Duke.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because they'll obviously will allow they're going to do obviously the champions will get automatic bid, and with 24 you're talking. I mean that just the regular season becomes kind of irrelevant.
Yeah,
Just
I
honestly,
agree.
the thing is, and this would be terrible for the sport, but if Ohio State and Michigan cancel these games against Ball State, Kent State, those games fund those schools. You're going to probably pay Ball State and Kent State $1 million plus to
Yeah,
pay for their uniforms next year.
yeah. Well, those wouldn't be the games that go away. It'd be
Then it would be playing against Texas would go away.
yeah. That's what it'd be like.
So you're going to play an 11 game schedule, what the Ivies do.
Well, you just find another team to replace it.
So what Indiana did this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that Kirk Cinetti has come out saying that is the way to go, and he's sticking with that philosophy. It obviously worked this year. I don't know how it could bite you in the ass when you have a schedule like this for Ohio State. I mean, I'd rather not play Texas just so it makes the schedule easier,
Yeah.
but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah,
But
I think in terms of games being scheduled for the future for both of our programs, you could see them maybe not schedule these big games. I know Ohio State has a home and home with Alabama, I think.
which is projected to get canceled.
Okay, yeah, and then Michigan's going to Texas
Because
next
of
year.
what has happened, which I don't blame. Both I don't blame.
No, I don't. But I would be upset if the games that were already on the schedule were canceled. I think that I wouldn't agree with that. But in terms of just scheduling future games, I understand. Like right now, there's just not a lot of benefit, not a lot of reward for that. So
There's not.
But when you're already playing such a hard schedule, and I do think though that like with the ACC and the SEC going to 9-game league schedules, you're going to see less. There's going to be less like 10-2 ACC teams. There's going to be less 10-2 SEC teams just because half of the league has to have another loss, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just how it is. So I think I do think you're going to see a 3-loss team make the playoffs in the next couple of years. Just with that, I think it's just bound to happen, especially when you see like strength of schedules, like what Michigan and Ohio State will have next year.
Yeah, it almost worked out, and the ACC has to fix their champion, how they put the champions in the ACC, or the two teams that play for the championship. But at some point, yeah, you'll see the 3-loss team, and we almost saw, we're a couple games away from seeing that this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously, kind of wrap things up. I know the early odds, Ohio State on FanDuel have the same odds, the number one in terms of lowest odds to win the national championship, or highest odds to win the national championship with Notre Dame. I'm shocked Oregon isn't the first. They are, I believe, fourth. So that's kind of shocking. Plus 900. Ohio State's plus 650 with Notre Dame. And then Indiana plus 700, which also shocks me that they're that high. But end of the season, it's wish it ended, a little more on a positive note, at least for Ohio State. I'm sure you can say the same thing. Obviously, it hurts less when Ohio State wins the national championship, and you can't win it every single year. But if I look back, and the Indiana loss to me is probably the most heartbreaker. I mean, you're right there, and Bo Jackson can't stay on his feet, and Jaden Fielding misses a 27-yarder.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's brutal.
It's one of those. you're just kind of sitting back and watching the field goal. I mean, that's what probably every single Ohio State fan did. Obviously, he has trouble, but 27 yards. I didn't see that often. He did that against Michigan, but that was 2 years prior.
Yeah.
Or a year prior, and he hadn't the whole year. He had been fine, and in the playoff, he was fine last year, and had around the same distance to seal it against Notre Dame. So it wasn't really a thought in the front of your mind, and he missed it. So that one to me stings because I don't think Indiana goes downfield again, which they didn't when they got the ball back. But nonetheless, 2026, we move forward. But congrats to Indiana.
Yeah, moving on. I guess final thought for me on Michigan moving forward is excitement. What was that, Alexa or something?
Yeah. Someone's at the front door.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess final thought on Michigan is kind of we'll see. Like that's really it. You got what I think is a great staff behind Kyle Whittingham. I think Jason Beck and Jay Hill are great coordinators. Bryce Underwood, probably the biggest. I think next year the team will go as far as Bryce Underwood develops, if that makes sense, especially offensively. I have a lot of questions on the defense. That's kind of where a lot of Michigan fans feel the most unsure, I think. But this team is going to go as far as Bryce Underwood develops. Now I don't know if you saw the Urban Meyer. I think it's called the Triple Option podcast with Urban Meyer, where he
they've been doing that for
years, and he said Kyle Whittingham was on that show, and he said that Bryce Underwood didn't have a quarterbacks coach last year, which I knew they didn't have. I knew Chip Lindsey was the offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach, but I thought he was still daily with the quarterbacks, day and watching film and helping out the young guys, but apparently not. Apparently that was wasn't taking place. So I think there was a lot of coaching dysfunction under the past staff. So I'm really excited to see what this team looks like going forward. September can't get here fast enough. And I'll also add that don't look now, but a lot of the guys that are going to be, taking meaningful snaps for Michigan next year on offense are going to be sophomores, like all of them. Andrew Marsh, Underwood, Jamie French, J.J. Buchanan. So you got multiple years with these guys. You hope, who knows the portal, but
yeah, both Ohio State and Michigan are the average age has gone up. I've seen in a graphic, so hopefully that pans out for them throughout the season because it helps. I mean, high school recruiting is going to suffer. The recruiting classes will go down from around 25 to probably 15, 16 because there was a conversation between Day and Urban Meyer after Indiana won the national championship, and Ryan Day said, I want an older team because they were young, and that veteran presence that they didn't have with especially Will Howard, Travion Henderson, who was a team leader, a captain, Quinshon, and obviously they had downs, but that's one guy. That's not. Right. And I honestly, and I think that having an offensive player who's old, especially at wide receiver or quarterback, or especially maybe honestly running back and quarterback, to me are the 1-2 you want to be at the head of your team in terms of being a veteran and having that experience.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, unless you got anything else.
No, but obviously let us know what you thought about that national championship, Big Ten champion for third year in a row, and hopefully one of us can continue that streak next year. So we'll see. Both tough schedules, but we'll continue to go over that as we get more information. We will.
Yeah, we got a long off season, but we'll be here. So.
Yeah. All right. And go follow us on TikTok and X and both of our Instagrams, and we'll see you next week.